Picture this for a second. Imagine a massive military, millions of personnel strong, tasked with protecting incredibly vast, complex borders. But here's the catch. They are fundamentally reliant on foreign powers for the very technology that keeps those borders safe. It sounds wild, right? But this isn't some hypothetical scenario. It's the exact crisis we're unpacking today. We're looking at India's Defense Research and Development Organization, or DRDO, and a radical, ground-up pivot they're making to completely change the game. We're going to break down exactly how they plan to achieve true technological sovereignty and, crucially, the massive hurdles standing right in their way.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to use the master framework today to organize our mental buckets. We'll start with the root cause, the defense dependency crisis, then move into the deep tech pivot, how the actual funding mechanism works, the innovation roadblocks they're facing, and we'll wrap it all up with a rapid-fire master revision.
So starting off with the defense dependency crisis and why autonomy is absolutely critical.
Before we even get into the futuristic technology, we have to look at the foundational problem. Think about it. Can a military really call itself independent if its core technology is imported? That's the elephant in the room. The DRDO's objective here isn't just about showing off shiny new gadgets. It's about ending a glaring vulnerability. Right now, there's a heavy reliance on imports for the systems, subsystems, and components that the tri-services need. And honestly, relying on external supply chains for your most critical defense infrastructure, that's a massive strategic risk. Solving this through indigenization isn't a luxury. It is a matter of urgent national security.
All right, moving to the solution phase, the strategic pivot towards deep tech and how it's redefining military innovation.
To actually solve this dependency crisis, slapping a few incremental upgrades onto existing legacy systems simply isn't going to cut it anymore. What they need is a total structural pivot. And the answer? Deep technology. When we say deep tech, we mean innovations that are grounded in intense, substantial scientific research and high-tech engineering breakthroughs. We're talking about solutions designed to solve incredibly complex problems with disruptive tech. This isn't a quick fix. Actually, scratch that. It's the exact opposite of a quick fix. Developing deep tech requires massive funding and a long-term R&D cycle to truly disrupt the defense sector.
Let's build a mental model here to really grasp the scale of what we're talking about. Think about your traditional tech startups. They usually focus on improving what we already have, right? Providing better digital solutions, building a faster app to order your dinner, or streamlining an e-commerce platform. Deep tech ventures, on the other hand, operate on an entirely different plane. They are out there inventing completely new, disruptive technologies rooted in cutting-edge R&D. It's the difference between building a slightly better software interface and engineering a completely new quantum sensor system for a war zone.
And to spearhead this massive indigenization drive, DRDO is launching exactly 5 highly focused deep tech projects. Anchor that number in your mind, 5. Instead of taking their resources and spreading them incredibly thin across hundreds of minor upgrades, the strategy here is to concentrate their firepower into 5 specific targeted initiatives to really kickstart this technological transformation.
Now, what makes this formidable is the financial muscle behind it. Each of these 5 projects is going to receive up to 50 crore rupees. The mandate for this funding is crystal clear. Find and develop innovative solutions for concepts that simply do not exist in India right now, or, frankly, globally. It's a very serious initial injection of capital, specifically designed to spark groundbreaking disruption.
So what exactly are they building with that money? Well, we're looking at the absolute frontier of human engineering. Artificial intelligence, robotics, quantum computing, biotechnology, advanced materials, and blockchain. By focusing heavily on these futuristic, disruptive domains, DRDO is aiming to completely revolutionize the tri-services. These aren't just Silicon Valley buzzwords. These represent the kinds of technologies that fundamentally rewrite the rules of engagement, material strength, and secure communications.
And this brilliantly illustrates a major shift in strategy. Globally, these kinds of technological leaps are usually spearheaded by state defense research organizations, the gold standard, of course, being the U.S. DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. DRDO is actively mirroring the DARPA model for its own deep tech initiative. They recognize that mimicking a framework that has already proven successful globally is the absolute fastest, most efficient path to long-term independence.
Okay, let's look under the hood at the project funding mechanism and how the TDF actually operates.
So we know the why and the what, right? Let's get into the mechanics. Enter the TDF, or the Technology Development Fund. This is the crucial bridge in this whole operation. The TDF is DRDO's funding mechanism specifically designed to connect rigid, state-run defense research with the speed, the agility, and the innovation of private industries, MSMEs, and startups. It's literally the pipeline that channels state funding right into the hands of private sector innovators so they can build the hardware and software the military desperately needs.
But you know, the government isn't just handing over a blank check on day one. No way. It's a highly systematic, phased rollout designed to mitigate risk. First up, an integrated expert team does a rigorous project appraisal. Only if it passes that does the funding roll out, and it happens across 5 distinct tranches. That critical first installment is strictly capped at 20% of the total funding. The rest of the money is distributed across the remaining 4 phases only as the startups actually hit their R&D milestones. It is a system built entirely on accountability.
But it's time for a reality check. Let's look at the roadblocks in defense innovation.
Because look, no strategic pivot of this magnitude happens without stumbling blocks. We have to be objective about the systemic limitations here. First off, project delays. Historically, DRDO's development of advanced systems has faced massive delays, leading directly to severe cost overruns and late deployments. Second, technology gaps. The reality is, the Indian defense industry currently lacks the baseline capability to independently manufacture certain critical parts and raw materials, which leads us right back to that continued reliance on imports. And third, collaboration. Getting the fast-paced private sector to perfectly align with highly structured, sometimes bureaucratic defense R&D, that remains a huge, persistent friction point.
So, the crucial point here, and this is really where the rubber meets the road, is the financial reality. If you look at the budget, DRDO's allocation grew from roughly 23,263 crore rupees in the 23-24 fiscal year to 23,855 crore rupees in 24-25. It is an increase for sure, but let's be real, it's a remarkably modest one. When you are pushing for cutting-edge quantum computing and AI, we have to analytically ask ourselves, does this modest budget bump practically align with the government's massive push for rapid modernization?
Let's bring this all together and move into our master revision to lock in those key takeaways.
All right, let's cement your conceptual mastery of this briefing. Here are the 5 absolute must-remember facts. 1. The primary goal is indigenization to end that dangerous import reliance. 2. The scope is exactly 5 deep tech projects, funded at up to 50 crore rupees each. 3. The focus areas are frontier tech like AI, quantum, and robotics. 4. The execution is mirroring the US DARPA model, rolling funds out through the TDF in 5 strict tranches. And 5. The constraints are very real. We're talking modest budget growth, deep-seated tech gaps, and a historical track record of project delays.
Which brings us to our final analytical thought for this explainer. As we weigh these incredibly ambitious goals against the current, on-the-ground systemic constraints, we're left with one big question. Will these modest budget increases actually be enough to fuel a true DARPA-level transformation in the defense sector? It's a critical tension point between economic reality and the urgent need for technological sovereignty. Thanks for joining this briefing. Keep analyzing the systems shaping our world, and as always, keep questioning the data.